That's how you get people to change.
Mm-hmm.
You should get them to realize if you don't start eating different, if you don't start treating people different, how much is that going to cost you?
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Props Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach, the chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Mr. Stenziano, I'm doing good today because I got you in the
house today,
same
bro.
room.
That's right.
We're always remote, so this is a treat for me. I have him down here in St. Augustine for a couple of weeks. We're just masterminding, doing videos together, being on the beach, having the kids play together. It's been awesome.
So for the folks on YouTube, we're a little tight. You know, we're kind of hip bumping right now, and I guess we're not afraid of the corona right here. So knock on wood. I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass because we're rolling the dice about 6 inches from each other right now. So, hey, we have a very special guest today. Today's guest is David Greene. David is a real estate investor, agent, author, entrepreneur, police officer in the East San Francisco Bay Area. Don't get it twisted, folks. David's goal is to achieve total financial independence through real estate and to help as many others do so as possible. So without further ado, David, welcome to the show.
What's going on, guys? That might have been the fastest intro I've ever heard read. You reminded me of my childhood. Remember that Micro Machines guy in those commercials?
I haven't had an afternoon espresso yet either, so let's go, man. Let's do it.
People are going to get 5 hours of value out of 45 minutes here. This is awesome.
So we jam-pack it. So listen, we were talking a little bit before we got on about you being a police officer. Obviously, you didn't start out in real estate if you started out as a police officer. So tell us a little bit about your progression and how you evolved as a real estate person.
I totally fell into this thing backwards, had zero inclination of ever wanting to be a real estate investor. So now I co-host the BiggerPockets podcast. We talk about real estate very similar to you guys, bring different guests on, and we talk about, how they built wealth of real estate. But I didn't even know what a podcast was when I got started. It was 2009. I had been working in restaurants for all the time I was in college, saving my money. I'd saved up about $90,000 just and paid for my school and my car. I worked a lot while I was in college at the most expensive restaurants I could get. I commuted about 45 minutes each way to get to school and then back home and then to the restaurant. So I knew I was going to want to buy a house someday to live in, but I was living with my parents and I had just gotten started as a deputy sheriff. I worked there for about a year. And I had a buddy in church and he was moving away to go to Bible college and he was about to lose his earnest money deposit on the house. And he was bummed. And I was like, well, maybe if I buy it, they'll let you keep your deposit. So I went and looked at the house with him. It was in Lathrop, California. He had it under contract for $215,000. It was a 2,500 square feet, 5 years old. The house had sold for $595 before it went into foreclosure. And he had put it under contract. So this is right when the market had just completely tanked. And everybody says they want to go back to, I can't wait for the next recession to buy houses. But I'll tell you, nobody was telling you to buy houses at that time. All we heard.
Shit in their pants today too, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. All we heard is, don't do it. It's going to be worse. We're going into a depression. No one's going to pay the rent. You don't want to own real estate. It's an anchor. So I took what felt like this huge leap of faith, and I ended up buying that house for $195,000. I got it for a little bit better price. Rented it out. Got screwed by the tenant. Got taken advantage of. He was better at being a tenant than I was at being a landlord. Figured out there's other people like property managers that know what I'm doing. My property manager wasn't even good, but it was just better than me. Realized, oh, this isn't so bad. Bought another house the next year, bought another house the next year. Then I bought a fourplex. When I bought that fourplex, it was actually the first time that I actually calculated what was ROI. I didn't know the ROI was a thing because I didn't really pay attention to finances. I'm just a cop and a basketball player. But I realized in 3 years, I'll get my money back. That was how I looked at it. It was like a 33% ROI. And I said, holy crap, dude, I just need to buy a lot of these things. This is where it's at. Got that bug we all get where you realize the power of real estate and want to get into it. And then frankly, watched the California economy completely shoot right back up. Everything was just flying off the shelves in 2013. Couldn't buy anything. Was forced to go buy out of state. Started buying in Arizona and then later in Jacksonville, Florida. Put together my long distance investing kind of like system that I used that I wrote when I wrote that book. Ran out of money because it would take a lot of time to save up down payments for houses, even cheap houses. You got to put 25% down, then you got to go put the rehab in. Started the BRRRR method, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, so that I didn't have to run out of capital as fast. Ended up writing a book on that. Got out of law enforcement. I got injured. I couldn't really stand for too long anymore. I have really bad feet from just working too much and became a real estate agent. Now I'm a real estate broker with Keller Williams. I run the David Greene Team. I help other people build wealth through real estate using the same methods that I did, building a team there. And now I'm opening a mortgage branch so we can help our clients with loans as well.
Wow. So I'm going to dive back into your past. What made you want to become a cop?
Oh, that's so funny. I had no desire to be a cop either. And there's probably a good lesson that comes out of this because everybody wants to know like what's everything single thing I'm supposed to do before I get started. That's what keeps newbies from ever making progress is they think they need the whole blueprint before they take the first step. So I was in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really anxious about that because I'm not the type of person who doesn't like not knowing. I just want you to give me a path and let me go run faster than everyone else. I don't like having to try to figure it out. Video games where you got to wander around and try to find your way through the level. I hated those as a kid. Just give me someone to fight. That's all I want to do. So I had a criminal law professor that said I was the smartest student he ever had. I was really good with law. He knew that I was, kind of like an athlete. So he said, you should go be in the FBI. I think that'd be a great job for you. I started the process of getting into the FBI. I ended up getting a job as a deputy sheriff while I was doing that process. I got laid off when the economy took a hit, and we all got laid off because property taxes pay police salaries and nobody was paying property taxes. Took a job at a different department and completely fell in love with law enforcement. I thought I was going to do that my whole life. That was all. I was one of those guys that just eat, breathe, sweat law enforcement. That's all. I would have done it for free. I just loved it. And if we're being honest, like that kind of took a turn for the worse. The country turned against police officers, especially the area where I was. You got to where you couldn't do your job anymore. If you tried to, it was always being framed in a way that wasn't accurate. The media really didn't help. And I got tired of banging my head against a brick wall. I was catching myself getting really negative. I was catching the other officers I worked with getting really negative. Everybody was just like drowning. It was a cesspool of negativity in that world. And I was like, I got 20 more years of this. What's it going to be like in 20 years? And the real estate stuff I had control over. There wasn't some administrative superior telling you no, because that will look bad. Or, yeah, we know people are getting robbed over there and beaten up, but if we put a bigger presence, we're going to get a protest because people don't want to see cops over there. And I just realized like, there's nothing that stops me in real estate. I set my own ceiling and I set my own floor. And it was a really good move for me to make. And so when I got out of being a cop and into real estate, it just really took off for me. And I realized that was the right move.
David, thanks for that answer. What I want to ask you right now really is, what limiting beliefs did you have as a cop getting into real estate? Because we really need to dive into these a little bit, because there are people out there that are similar: policemen, firemen, teachers, union workers, and they all have these pizza guys. We all have these limiting beliefs that we don't have enough money, we don't have enough experience, we don't have enough credibility. But what you do need to have is a why. And it sounds like you had a why, because you're like, they're not treating me right. I can't do my job. I'm not liking what I'm doing anymore. There's no more passion for it. So what limiting beliefs did you have getting into the real estate space?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, I was not the most friendly guy. I was a cop's cop. If you were a cop and you weren't very good, I really didn't talk to you or have much to say to you. It's a rough environment to try to make friends in. It's very, hierarchical, you could say. I don't like small talk. I just like to get right to the point with stuff. And real estate agents and salespeople, that's not really, you're not going to do very well with that.
What are you doing, man? This doesn't make any sense. You're doing a podcast. You're trying to sell people homes, but you don't want to speak to them.
That's exactly what it was, man. I would go door knocking on people's houses to see if they wanted to sell it. They'd be rude to me, and I'd be like, why don't you step outside from that door and tell me, right? Like the worst thing to do when you're trying to find clients. It was terrible. Couldn't do open houses, couldn't build rapport. So that was my biggest limiting belief, is how am I ever going to be a salesperson when people irritate me and I don't have handcuffs to make them do what I want?
So David, I'm going to push back on you with my, little life coaching here. Maybe it wasn't the people. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was what you were actually, you're actually attracting, right? Because I had the same thing in the restaurant. I would always blame my employees, but maybe I sucked and I was trying to attract what I wasn't, right? So if you take a step back, everybody out there, and we all have the same thing that's going on with David. We have those limiting beliefs, that mindset that it's everybody else. But if we can take a step back and grow from that experience and have a conscious awareness of how we're interacting with others, we take ultimate responsibility for our own actions, then maybe you'll lessen the pain on that and say, okay, it's my turn. I have to buck up. Just because I was a cop and I was in that environment before, I don't have to be in that environment going forward. Does that make sense, David?
Yeah, 100%. It was my fault. So I didn't value other people's feelings. I just thought that was stupid. And I didn't have to as a cop, right? Well, what happened is there was a cop I knew, and she bought a house with somebody else. She used them as their agent. And I was like, why would you do that? I'm way smarter than that person. And I realized it's because I was kind of mean to her. I wasn't really, she wasn't a great cop, and I wasn't super kind, and I didn't really help her a whole lot. And she didn't feel comfortable coming to me. And that was when I had that moment of, well, I better change the way I do stuff, because that's a lot of money I'm going to be losing if I stay the same.
Wow. So people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. So you didn't hit Either one of those, right? I mean, they knew you, but they didn't like you and they didn't trust you. So that was the aha moment, huh?
I would say most of them probably trusted me because I was a good guy, but they didn't feel comfortable with me. The like factor was my biggest problem. They just didn't really like me because they knew I didn't like them. And that was where I realized, like, if people are going to
Why
like
didn't
you,
you
got to
like
like
him
them
though,
first.
David?
I just didn't like anybody. I was a super hard driven person. And if you didn't give 110% at what you did, I didn't have a whole lot of respect for you back then.
So it sounds like you went through a big self-awareness point in your life or something. What happened there?
I realized I couldn't be a cop and I had to be an agent. It's like a form of getting in shape, right? Well, I got to go run this race and I can't do it. I got to change my body if I want to be able to perform where I do. And I'm so driven to be good at the stuff I do that it was actually my personality that had to change to be good in this world.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Nice self-awareness. What tips would you start giving investors out there that want to get into multifamily? If you have a framework, some tips to get in, where should they start?
The first thing people need to do is quit thinking about where they are and make a plan to go forward. It never works. What you got to do is say, where do I want to be, and make a plan to work backwards from that. So you got to look at successful multifamily investors and say, what skills do they have that I'm lacking? It's very similar to what I did as a real estate agent. Why does everyone use that guy? Well, every time I talk to that guy, he just makes me feel like $1 million. He would take the shirt off his back and give it to me, but he's 10 times wealthier than I am. How do I make people feel that way? And I would watch what they do, and I would start to adjust the way that I interacted with people to be more like them. So with large multifamily type stuff you're trying to get into, you got to be able to raise money. You got to be able to analyze deals. You got to be able to build relationships with brokers to get those deals. The first thing you got to figure out is, which of those skills do I want to learn and which do I want to leverage out? Do I have a partner that's good at that stuff that I'm not? Can I hire someone to do the stuff that I'm not? Pick the part you think is where you have the best chance of being good. Focus really hard on that, and then build a system backwards from the end goal so you can start moving forward.
I love that. So what other aha moments have you had throughout your journey? Because you've scaled up, you're building businesses, you're trying to hire people. What are the entrepreneurial, what's that journey look like for you?
The biggest challenge for me, honestly, has been hiring people. I've been terrible at it. I hire people that are not, they look like talent, but they're not talent. They don't work as hard as me. They're not committed as me. And I try to coach them up. And you guys are 100% right. It's all about self-awareness. I actually have a performance coach. He's a psychologist who worked with Metallica and Rascal Flatts and a lot of people in Hollywood and professional athletes. He's very well known. And he's been pointing out that what I'll do is I'll look at where I didn't get a hand up in life, like when I was a little kid and no one was giving me an opportunity, and I'll project that onto everyone that I see. So I'll be trying to treat them the way I didn't get treated when I was 7, 8 years old. And I'll get these employees that are just not getting it done, and I'll make excuses for them, and I'll try to encourage them, and I'll try to build them up, and I'll pour encouragement into them. But really, they're just not committed. And that's me. That's my issues affecting my business, right? So now I have to start looking at myself again and say, okay, I got to be the bad guy here. I got to tell people this is the expectation. And if you can't meet this, then we can't work together. That's been my biggest challenge. But I think the point you're getting at, which is a really good one, is if you want to be successful, that's what you're signing up for. You're going to see all the things that are not good with you, all the areas that you're not in shape, which is usually like your attitude, and you're going to have to start working it out.
So what I love about that, Jay can share this a little bit. We've had that problem also. We've been getting coached up with the Rockefeller habits and scaling up. We actually had to come up with our core values because we have the same problem. We've got over 60 employees just with our property management company, and hiring the right people with the right attitudes and our core values. You want to share our core values? I mean, they're so important to us.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing with our core values is that we hire and fire on these. And it was something that I poo-pooed early on. And I just was like, because I came from corporate, and it was like, oh, core values, core values. It is like so apparent when someone is not living the values right now that it's just, and you got to be done with it. Because I think the one thing that I want to stress to folks is that when you're waking up day in and day out, and I feel it coming through David right now, and you have that one employee that is rotten and ruining your life, you just have to cut the head off. It's not being mean. They're not in a good space because they don't align with your culture, and they need to be somewhere where they're going to be a culture fit. And if it's not with you, then you have to do them the service of removing them from the situation. And a couple of things before we get to the core values, Gino, is that keep in mind, David, right now, extremely tight economy. Hiring, more people have jobs now than ever. So that's a challenge. One thing that we've implemented is top grading. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a way of hiring. You may want to take a look at it. It's been good for us. personality assessments on the front end to kind of identify those different, personality types that work well in your culture for specific roles. And, I hate to even say this, I'm going to bite my tongue because I really don't like the company. We elevated our ADP platform to a higher level that actually helps with marketing, and it gives you a landing page and whatnot that looks really good. So ADP's not been my favorite of companies, but that stuff is actually elevated for us a little bit as well. But, I think one of the biggest core values for us is that it's entrepreneurship. So day in, day out, one of our top core values is make it happen. And that's just because as you're growing, this is a growth company. There's going to be times where we're going to push you outside of your comfort level, and people are just going to have to, pull up their boots, you bootstrap and get it done. So I think that's one of the most important ones. And extreme ownership. We have, 5 various companies that are going on, and the people that are running those companies underneath us have to take extreme ownership. And then also, the values piece. I think every company, has their values piece, but that's that the values aren't there. These are long-term relationships. I don't think it's going to work.
So that's where I struggled when I had the restaurant. I didn't have any core values. And the other piece is there was no accountability tool as far as having weekly calls and communication. So that's another big component that we've been able to implement. And, you attract what you are, not what you want. Right. Mm-hmm. So I was attracting less than desirable employees with the restaurant business 10 and 15 years ago because I wasn't the leader that I was supposed to be. And probably the same thing with you. And you're a cop and you're trying to get listings. You're attracting what you are, not what you want. So that's really important, being conscious and being able to grow out there. Where do you see yourself doing in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself going into multifamily more, selling homes, building businesses? What do you see yourself doing?
I really love teaching people, helping people. I'm not even buying as much real estate for myself right now as much as I'm helping our clients with house hacking or selling their house for more money and helping them to buy real estate so that they can start building wealth. I see that growing into a pretty big thing where the David Greene Team, I actually have expansion offices in different parts of the country with agents that are trained in my method that can help people buy real estate from a financially wise position instead of just play on their emotions to get them to go buy the house with a really nice kitchen, explaining this is a difference between in 10 years from now what you would have been paying in rent versus what it's going to cost to be owning a house. This is how you can shorten that. These are things you can do to generate income with the house you live in or buying investment properties. And then focusing myself probably on the finance side of it, how to get people lower closing costs, lower interest rates, putting together a loan company so that other people can really it's hard to find someone to trust in the real estate space. Agents are really smooth talkers. I really don't love working with most agents because they're all talk and they don't really deliver. It's hard to find someone to trust. So I'd like to figure out a way that give people an option that I know when I go with these guys, they're going to take care of me, and then turn my attention back to, okay, now we've got this revenue we've generated. Where am I going to be investing it? Who am I going to be partnering with? The older I get, the more I realize that where my biggest value I bring to someone is taking a fire they've already built and pouring gas on it. If you make me build that fire from the ground up, build that company, build that business, all of my flaws are having to be used. The hiring of people, the managing of people, that type of stuff. But if you take a system that's already made, I can absolutely come in and ramp it up and scale it really fast. So what that means is in the future, I'm going to have to understand how to find the right partner who's already got something that's working well, and then bring my resources into it to help it do 2 or 3 times better than what it was. Mm-hmm. And then sort of have like an ecosystem that I live in of partners that I'm with, that I'm helping to bring all of us up.
So David, this is not a knock on real estate agents and people in the real estate space. Do you think they are more of the transaction mindset and not the entrepreneurial mindset?
Not the good ones. The good ones understand they are a business.
Well, yes. Yeah. What I'm saying though is you're saying a lot of the ones that you're attracting aren't the entrepreneurial mindset. They're just in there and smooth talkers. So maybe that's part of your core values on the front end. You really want to talk about that entrepreneurial mindset and say, this is what we have, and maybe offering a little bit of equity or whatever the structure is. Because for us, we've had multiple streams of revenue also with our syndication company, with our property management company, with our capital company, with our education company. And there's no way that you can do all of those without scaling up and actually hiring really great people and offering them the vision. Because I think what's great about millennials is millennials want to work for something. They're not my generation. All we're concerned about is a paycheck. All we're concerned about is our 401k. I think millennials want that, but they also want to work for something greater, for the greater good. So I think focusing on that also will help.
Let me jump in here, because I actually think that what you were saying a minute ago could potentially help in your hiring too, because you're talking about how you don't really settle in good with like just the slick talkers, but it almost might be your blue ocean there. I even felt the passion come out there a minute ago when you were talking about it, because you have a certain way of doing business and the people that align with that. So like putting that out there and promoting it could help, bring in those folks that you're looking for. And really just kind of separate yourself, because you have so many of these folks that are out there that are the really good talker, and they're very good at building rapport, but maybe they suck at follow up, and maybe they, at 5 o'clock they want to punch out. So I think that, that separator is going to be something that could really lead to good things for you down the road. But I mean, I literally felt it come through. Like, you're like, this is who we are, man. It was great.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Can you talk about you said the David Greene method. What is the David Greene method?
Yeah. So here's the part that's tricky about being a real estate agent is anyone could get a transaction to close. If your client is motivated enough, you could be the worst agent in the world and no one will ever know it. What's tricky about being a top producing agent is that you got to be able to help people that are not super motivated. It's not like, hey, I'm moving from Tennessee to California. I need to buy a house. I got a baby. I need somewhere for them to sleep. These are people that are scared. They don't know why they should buy real estate. They just know smart people tell them that they should, right? They're not prepared for the emotional wave that's going to crash against them of doubt and worry and fear. Very similar to investors that know they want to invest in real estate. Mm-hmm. They take the first couple steps, boom, they get hit in the face with something that they weren't expecting, and they freeze. They don't want to do it. So what I focus on is like a 3-step method to help your clients get through the fear and make sure that this is the right move for them. So my philosophy is we're not making decisions for people. We are helping them make the decision that's best for them, or helping them realize the decision they've already made to know that it's the right one. So the first thing is you have to understand when you're in one place, not owning a home, and you're trying to get to another, owning a home, or not having sold your house and then selling it, whatever the case is, there's obstacles that are coming in the way. The more you can smooth out what those obstacles are, the more likely someone's going to be to keep moving. So when we work with our clients, we sit you down before we ever show you a house. And we spend an hour and a half going over everything that happens in the process. This is an appraisal. This is a home inspection. Let's read one together. This is what we're looking for. This is how lending works. This is what the process looks like of showing homes. This is the contract. This is what we put in the contract. And I'm doing everything I can to smooth out what those jolts are going to be like for you later in the process. Then I want to make sure that we never let go of holding your hand. If I let too much distance come between us, that's when doubt and worry are going to start to creep in. We learned as a cop when we were fighting with suspects, if you can control the distance, you can control the damage. If I keep that person really tight, close to me, they can't wind up and pull their fist way back to be able to hit me. And it's like that with your clients. If you have scared people, you need to be very close to them. They need to feel the grip of your hand on theirs and let that reassure them when they get worried. The second piece is that you need to remind them of the goal. There's something that they want, and you have to continually keep putting in front of them. For us as real estate investing educators, there's wealth in your future. You got to buy real estate. You have to manage real estate. If you do this, look at people that bought it 30 years ago. But do you think any of them are worried about all the fear that they had in the moment? No, they would have never done. They wouldn't have changed a thing. So constantly reminding people of what is the goal that we're working towards. Mm-hmm. And the last piece is that negative reinforcement is actually the strongest motivator of human beings that there is. And that negative reinforcement doesn't mean hurting somebody. It means the removal of an adverse stimulus. So like taking away pain is way, way more powerful than just giving somebody pleasure. Mm-hmm. So reminding you of where we're going, that's giving you pleasure. But if I can remind you of the pain that you're experiencing because you're not taking action, you are way more likely to move. And we do that by asking a lot of questions. What's going to happen if you don't buy this house right now? Springtime comes and that same house is $75,000 more. How are you going to feel? What's going to happen if we back out of this deal and you don't find another house in the same school district and you get a house that you like more in an area that you don't like? Because the only thing you can't change about a house is where it is. We ask questions that let them be aware of their own pain so that they're motivated to move. And it's probably very similar to what you guys are doing with coaching. That's how you get people to change. Mm-hmm. You get them to realize if you don't start eating different, if you don't start treating people different, how much is that going to cost you? So that 3-step process kind of sums up what we do on my team. And we have a huge system and a bunch of tools that I give to agents to help them do that well. But that's really what you need to do if you want to help people get over their own fears.
I love this. Everybody, I'm going to say it again for you. I want you all to write this down because it's truly important, because you can use this to raise capital. First one is what I call the FIT, finding impact together, not the ABC, always be closing, right? You're giving value on the front end. So the first thing is tremendous value on the front end. Spend time with your clients, customers, investors, find out what they're looking for and give them the value. The second one is remind them of the goal. What is the goal? Is the goal to buy a house? Is the goal to become a passive investor where you can earn money while you're having a great time with your family and progressing in your career? And number three, the negative reinforcement. What's going to happen if you don't invest in multifamily right now? You're going to miss out. You're going to miss out. It's a basic human need right now. We're in a great growth spurt in multifamily. So those three are truly important, and you can utilize it in any business setting. I like that, the negative reinforcement. It doesn't have to be negative in a way, because Tony Robbins talks about it. You're moving away from pain or moving towards pleasure. And I moved away from pain for years when I was going from the restaurant. I don't want to live my entire life like that, but getting kicked in the butt for a few years will actually motivate you to get you where you're going. So I love that. Any other tips before we get to the short answer questions of, letting people, how do I get into real estate? What's my first step? What should I do?
First thing that I think most people should do, and this is an unpopular opinion with millennials and a lot of others, because the economy is so freaking good and it's easy to make money right now. If we're just being honest, absent this little coronavirus scare we got going on, this is the easiest time to make money I've ever seen in my lifetime. You need to have an apprenticeship mindset. Brandon Turner and I talk about this a lot. When you are new and you don't know anything, you're not worth very much. Okay, that doesn't mean you're not worth much as a human being, but in that specific environment, you're not worth a whole lot. Like, imagine if you wanted to play on an NFL team and you show up and you think you could be a good football player, but you're in terrible shape, you have no cardiovascular health, you can run one play and then you're done. Until you actually get to be fit, it doesn't matter what they teach you. It doesn't matter how hard you work. You're kind of useless. It's like that in business. When you first show up, you are not fit. You don't know what they're doing. You say, I'm here to help. I have hours to give you, but what are those hours do for me if you don't know what you're doing? Mm-hmm. So drop the idea that you need to be compensated before you have skills. When you can contribute to the football team, they can pay you. When you can actually play and do better than your competition, you're worth something. Until then, your value comes from learning. Find someone and apprentice for them. Work harder as an apprentice than you would if you were getting paid. You've got to convince them why you are worth pouring into and training and educating. Once you learn the information, if you're driven, you will make so much money in the next 2 years of your business that the 6 months that you didn't make money won't even matter. Mm-hmm. I've seen this in my own life. Like when I was in high school, I worked at Togo's and Baskin Robbins, and I literally made more money in a month than I did in 2 years of working back then. I was worried about the money, and I shouldn't have been. I should have been taking jobs where I would have learned something and working for free, because the money was it was insignificant compared to what I can make. The intern that just came to work for me, he worked for about 3 months and didn't make any money. In this month right now, he's going to make about 6 months of salary of what he left his last job to do. It just, boom, it takes off. So that's the thing that I would tell people who want to get into real estate. Continue doing what you're doing. Continue making money at your job, but start planning for the next step of your life, and don't expect to be compensated. Impress the hell out of whoever you're working with by outworking everyone around you, having a great attitude, proactively looking for what you can start doing to help them with, and then try to take things off their plate, right? Try to pull something away from what they're doing and say, let me go do it for you. Expect them to resist a little bit because you haven't proven yourself, but go prove yourself. And the minute that, you guys know this, the minute you find a talented person who's willing to work hard and has a good attitude, you just start dumping stuff on them and opportunity floods them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So everyone, let me recap there real quick. David's talking about having a growth mindset instead of having a fixed mindset. The fixed mindset says, I know it all. My time is worth value. I don't want to give it up. The growth mindset is, there's a challenge there. Let me experience an opportunity. Let me get out of my comfort zone. Let me grow, and let me continually be challenged.
Hey, there's only one water boy, right? and for the millennials out there, go watch that movie. David, that's great advice. All right, gang, let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsor.
Is your money working as hard as you are? At Rand Partners, we partner with hard-working investors who seek true passive income through multifamily real estate. Investing with Rand means you will receive transparent communication with our webinars, monthly statements, and newsletters. To start the conversation, visit jakeandgino.com/invest to register for the Rand Investor Portal, where you can view upcoming deals and set up a call with our team.
All right, we're back. David, what is your best habit for success? I know everyone has rituals and things they do on a daily and weekly basis. What makes you tick?
I think it's probably the attitude that I hate to spend any time on something and then not have it be successful. So my biggest fear is that I get 98% of the way to the goal and I fail in the last 2% and I got nothing. So I'm very, very good. If you put an opportunity in front of me, like if you put a gazelle in front of me and I'm that cheetah, I'm going to catch that thing. Right. So a lot of people, they think that working hard is showing up and going through motions and doing things, but they don't actually measure what they're trying to get. The worst thing in the world is not for you guys to not buy an apartment. The worst thing is for you to do 9 months of due diligence, spend tons of money, get really close, and then decide I'm not going to answer this broker's phone call when it's time to actually buy it because I'm busy eating this sandwich right now. And that ends up being a $4 million sandwich because you didn't pick up the phone. You have to understand that once you're putting work into something, that your sense of urgency needs to increase. That's your friend. You want that feeling of we have got to lock this thing up. We've got to outperform other people. And the more invested you are into a project, the higher that urgency needs to be.
I love that. So it's basically you're committing to something, you're getting the job done, and you're not letting anything on the outside worry about you. And the problem with most people out there is they're busy, busy, busy. But being busy and being productive are two completely different things. And it's just mind-boggling to me. Like, hey, I used to wash dishes, $12 an hour. I thought I was busy. I'm doing work. I'm working hard. That's great. But at some point, you have to start working smart and not only work hard. So that's a great tip. Thanks.
No, it really is, because even in my own life, I remember we were doing a 281 unit deal. It was completely owner financed. And I remember it was about to fall apart. And I said, screw it. I drove over an hour to meet with the owners the night before the closing to shore things up and make sure it got pushed over the finish line. And I could have sat back and been lazy, but it's those little extra things when you don't quit that propel you in life. So I think that's a fantastic example.
That hour, you made more money than in any other hour of your life, right? It would have been
Bar
easy.
none, no doubt.
100%. It'd been easy to be like, well, I'm pissed off. They irritated me. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want the rejection, whatever the emotional state is. But you said, I'm going to put on my big boy pants and get over it. And you now have 281 units that you wouldn't have had. All that deal. There you go. That 99% of the work you did before was useless if you don't suck it up and perform in that hour.
Extreme ownership, baby. Core values, right? Here's one that's for me more than the rest of the folks. Favorite handgun?
I actually I used a Glock 21 when I was a police officer. Yeah. It was rugged. It was sturdy. It could get muddy. It could get dirty. I had big hands, so it could hold quite a few rounds. I liked how simple that it was. And it worked. Like I loved using.
Was the 21 a 9 or is that?
No, it was a 45.
40. Oh, yeah. The big boy.
So I had a big boy, and I could get a lot of rounds in it. That's what my big fear was. Is I didn't want something that only carry like 8 rounds, and then God forbid you're in a shootout and you run out of ammunition.
He wants one and done. He's saying one and done with it, right?
I like the SIG. I mean, I'm looking to buy a gun, so I like the SIG.
Oh, we gotta go shopping this week, right?
Yeah.
I had what did I have? I think I had a 229 6 Sauer when I was a deputy sheriff, and it was a double action, and I loved it. And then I went to a new department and we had a single action only, same gun, and it was horrible. I would have been better off just throwing it at the target because the trigger pull. You know what's weird is I have these PTSD nightmares where I have that gun and I'm trying to pull the trigger and I'm just pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and I can't get to the end. And like by the time that I do, it takes so much strength that the gun isn't even pointing at the target anymore. That's funny.
The minute you said that. That Glock you had probably weighed 30 pounds, so you could have just thrown it at somebody too. It was
an improvised impact weapon.
What about your best tip for someone starting to scale their real estate business?
Yeah. Okay. The best tip for someone starting to scale is to immediately drop this idea that if I don't do it, it won't get done. That's ridiculous. And start identifying what you suck at as fast as possible. Because trust me, even G's like you guys suck at something.
My list is long for me, bro. I got a long list there.
That's what's funny. The most successful people can tell you what they suck at way before they can tell you what they're good at. And that's, I think, my superpower. I know I am not good at all these things, and I'm immediately trying to find someone who's better at them to do it. So Krista, I've told her many times, we grow at the speed that you grow. Because you're the one that sets me up and tees me up. She puts the targets up for me. She makes sure my weapon's loaded. She makes sure that it's clean. She tells me like what the wind conditions are. So all I got to do is step up, focus on the target, and squeeze the trigger. You have to have that. For the majority of business owners, if you want to take another step up, you've got to get a really good admin that is setting appointments for you, that is preparing you for those appointments, that's doing due diligence and researching the client you're going to go talk to and letting you know what matters to them. That's putting you in a position where you can be successful so you can focus on just chasing that gazelle and taking it down. And the minute that it's down, you want other people to come in and actually clean the kill. So I tell people there's fish catchers, there's fish cleaners. Being a fish catcher is the most valuable, productive role you can have in a company. You're the guy bringing in the revenue. Then there's fish cleaners that have to go and actually process or clean what somebody else has brought in. If you could be the fish catcher, you're 100 times better, but you need to hire fish cleaners. If you're trying to do both, then you're leaving a lot on the table because you could be out there catching the next fish, and instead you're, working on what you've already caught and slowing yourself down.
That sharing part of the pie, though, that's really hard for people because they think the pie, as you can see, is a zero-sum game. Someone's buying high and buying low. But in real estate, there's so many different multiple revenue streams that you can generate. And also, there's the more deals you do, the more you can get paid and the more you can pay others. That's the great thing about real estate.
My favorite part of this business is sharing my pie.
Yeah.
I love making other people money and then seeing that I made you money, but now you're making me money, and it juices me up. I don't get worried about them getting paid. I get excited if they're getting paid as long as they're helping do the same for me.
I love that. What about a book recommendation?
There's two books I love. The first one is actually sitting on my desk right now. I wasn't even prepared for this. It's called Pitch Anything by Oren Clough. Have you guys read that one yet?
Well, I saw you at the airport in Denver after the BiggerPockets. You're checking out. You're going through customs over there. You're going through the TSA, and I'm like, "What are you reading?" And I love that book because it's all about the neocortex and the croc brain and how to deliver a pitch to somebody. And when David and everyone out there, when somebody who's smarter than you tells you to read a book, that's what you do is you go on Amazon, 5 minutes later you buy, and then 2 days later it's at your house and you read the thing, and then you get it on Audible and you take notes on Audible and you continue to do it. It was a phenomenal book. Seriously.
If you don't have confidence talking to people, that book will help you a ton. It's like a blueprint that spells out, this is how the human brain receives information. So say it this way. I love that book. The other one I really like is called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. I wish that kids were reading that in school. If everybody read that book and adopted the principles that are in So Good They Can't Ignore You, we wouldn't have protests of people that are not getting jobs that they want and they're ticked off about it. We would have way less welfare. We'd have way more confidence in the world from people that know that's a gazelle and I have the ability to go chase it down and feel good about themselves. So Good They Can't Ignore You is a really, really good book.
I like that.
Guess
what I'm reading next?
What's the thing you're excited about most now? I know you have a lot of things going on. You have anything to share with folks?
There's so many things. I think I'm most excited about getting into the mortgage industry and learning how to help with that. I really had bad experiences with real estate agents when I was buying property, and it feels very gratifying to be on the other side and feel like I'm empowered enough that I can take the things that were hurting me or irritating me and change that for other people. Like that's where a lot of the passion I think we all have comes from, is we look at frustrations we had when we were younger. And then when we get to provide those opportunities for other people, or we get to fix that problem, we really thrive. If you ask most people what they're passionate about and you ask them why, something happened to them when they were young in that arena, and it left like a drive to help other people that were in that situation. And I love helping other people build wealth and be successful. When I was young, I so badly wanted to be good at whatever I did. Really wanted the approval of my dad. I didn't really get it. Nobody was showing me how to get it. I felt hopeless. And then I stumbled into this understanding that if I work really hard and if I study things and build systems, I can be successful. My confidence shot up. How assertive that I was changed. Everything about my life, I started to like myself more. And I really love finding other people that are in the same boat as me, that are skilled and talented, but don't know what to do with it, and putting them in a position where they can and kind of watching them thrive.
I love that.
So I'm sure folks out there listening right now are like, I would love to work with David. What is the best way? Say that, if someone out there is saying like, I'm investing right now and I would love to take a more active role, maybe in like a real estate salesperson, or come join your team. What would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Emailing me at davidgreene@kw.com. There's an E at the end of Green would be the best way. And the second best way would be adding me on Instagram. I'm davidgreene24, and sending me a message there. I try to keep my inbox clear as much as I can on Instagram. It's really something you should only be looking to do if you're ready to give it all you have. You know that either you're going to go full-time or you're going full-time in the near future. Being a real estate agent is not something you can do part-time. Unless you're a special kind of person who puts a full-time effort into part-time hours, you really got to understand, like I'm sure you guys have learned, to be good at anything you're doing, it's your commitment level has to be 100% maxed out. If you have this idea that, oh, that's kind of fun, maybe I'll work a couple hours a week here or there doing this or that, you're just getting nothing. You're going to get beat out by somebody who wants it more. So for those that are super committed, who really, like you guys mentioned, have the entrepreneurial mindset, who want to take charge of their life and say, I work so hard at this company and I make $7,500 a month and it's okay money, but I could be doing so much better. Man, there's so much opportunity out there in the world that we're playing in. And it's fun when you can bring people into that and they get to realize it.
Yeah, don't join with David if you just want to put your toe in the water. If you're going to commit and kick some ass, I think that's a much better fit. So, G-Dad, what else you got?
I want everyone to put their toe in the water, at least in the beginning. See if it's right for them, and then when it's right, give David a call, because it's important. Everyone's focused on, should I quit my job right now? The 10% entrepreneur, that's what I did. I was doing the restaurant and real estate. I was doing real estate as my quote unquote part-time gig, but I was still probably doing 15 to 20 hours a week. And I was scaling up at the point. There's going to come a point when you quit and say, I'm going to do this full time. So don't feel like you have to quit everything, burn the bridge, burn the ships. That's a great way to do it, because then you can't turn back and you're really focused on that. But you can do both. See if you really like it. And then once you do like it, commit to it full time. And I'm sure that you'll find something in real estate that you'll love, whether it's educating people, whether it's selling, whether it's buying, whatever it is. There's so many different facets to real estate. And it's such a great way to live, because you can create a lifestyle for yourself. You can work 70 hours a week. You can work 40 hours a week. You can work remote. You can do whatever you want. So focus on it, enjoy it, and then hit up David.
You guys are both right about that. You do want to dip your toe into the industry before you get into it. You don't want to go to a top producer and try to partner with them before you know you're committed. I actually have Justin sitting in the office with me right now. He came to shadow me for today. He's a firefighter. He's looking to get his real estate license and make the transition. And he and I were talking about, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. The guy that trains him is, like a Brazilian master. And I'm going to start training in jiu-jitsu with Justin, because I told him, no, I want you to take me and maybe some of the new guys in your group and just get me used to this. Help me build up my conditioning. Let me learn some of the fundamentals. If I went to his instructor and said, teach me jiu-jitsu, it would be pointless. There's nothing that guy can show me that I can even do. And the stuff that I need to be learning, he doesn't even remember it anymore. He does it as second nature. That's another big thing to look for when you're choosing your mentor. Don't pick someone that's 27 steps ahead of you. You're not going to be able to pick up on anything they're doing. Pick someone that's 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, or even 1 step ahead of you, and then learn what they're doing and kind of progress from there.
Great points.
Yeah, no, it really is. And we saw that even in our own coaching program, we have accountability coaches and then deal expert coaches, because we see the variance and, the levels of sophistication and points where people are at in their ascent. And we think that's just, I think it's super, super important. So that's a fantastic point.
David, I just want to thank you for being on the show. Anything else, Jake?
No, that's it, man. Love it. Love what you're doing, and keep kicking ass. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Take care, everybody.